Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. Tonight, I've got a special guest with us. We're going to be talking some crappie fishing. We got a few in here right now. Let's go through a few names and see who we got in here. We have Avid Fisherman. He was the first one in. Welcome, Avid. 351 Cleveland. Welcome, buddy. He's always jumping in on my live streams. I appreciate that. Want to be outdoors. Who else? Pontoon Jody. That's a new one for this channel. So thank you, Jody, for joining. Let me turn this sound off on this other computer so I don't get an echo here. All right. Before I introduce my guest tonight, we're just going to talk a little bit about some crappie patterns. We got the spawn coming up. We're going to talk about all three phases of the spawn. Just places that you would go look for these fish. I know I get asked all the time, what am I looking for at this particular time of year? Where are the fish and how deep and everything? So we're going to go over that. We're going to talk about the pre-spawn. We're going to get into the spawn and the post-spawn. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce my guest here, Mr. Mark. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, Jeremy. Thanks for having me. What's up, everybody in chat? How you guys doing? Hey, do Jeremy a favor. Share this out for him if you can. If you got a community tab, put on your community tab, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you got. Let's see if we can't support Jeremy here. He's been part of the community for a long time. He's had some stuff that kept him away from the game. So let's get him back on track to his second channel with 1K. Right, Jeremy?
That's right, buddy, and I appreciate it.
You
got a couple more people in here, Jimmy Graham and Brian B. Catfishing. Thanks for joining us, guys. Before we get into the discussion on the crappie fishing tonight, let's get to know Mark a little bit. Maybe some of the viewers on my channel that hasn't got to meet Mark or see him yet. Let's get to know him a little bit. Mark, where do you live?
I live McHenry County, Illinois. I'm about 30 miles northwest, 40 miles northwest of Chicago. Chicago's a big place, so it depends where you're measuring from. So I'm 52 miles from Navy Pier, which is right on Lake Michigan. It's about as far as east as you can get on the city. So that'll give you an idea of where I am. About maybe 2/3 of the way or a third of the way to Rockford from Chicago. So I'm like right in what's called the ex-burbs of Chicago, which literally I could be out in farms in 5 minutes if I head west. So
yeah, it stays pretty cold up there, doesn't it?
It's cold today. It's been cold all week. I was looking at the weather, Jeremy, and I don't know what the heck's going on. We got one day that we're going to hit 60 degrees, but every other day is going to be like 30 degrees. And that day we're getting 60, it's supposed to be windy and rainy and stuff. So it's been kind of bad.
Yeah. We got Catfish Weekly in the house. What's up, Lyle? Thanks for joining us.
What's going on, Lyle?
How long have you been crappie fishing, Mark?
I've been crappie fishing since I was a kid. I haven't really chased them hardcore up until, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago. I started chasing them a little more. I found out about some of the patterns that we're going to be talking about and learned that there's better times than not. And it wasn't just luck of the draw of when I was catching them, which is funny. Like my PB, which I kind of wiped off the record books this year because I gave it a lot of thought. I caught when I was really young kid. And that was kind of luck of the draw. It was in this old guy's backyard that used to charge us $3 to fish in his backyard. But that's another story.
Yeah. Mark, you're a pretty busy man. You're the host of your own channel, Catfish and Crappie, and you're also the co-host of Panfish Nation. So you got a lot on your plate right now, don't you?
I am. It's not too bad. It's my hobby. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy figuring out how to do stuff, whether it's editing videos or trying to get more traffic. Hopefully we can do better on both of them. We're going to try and hit them this year. But, it's like the last 2 weeks I've been fishing every day, and I haven't done any videotaping. So I try not to let it get in the way of my fishing and try not to let my fishing get in the way of this hobby. So it's kind of a balancing act, but that's kind of how I've been playing it.
So you also put on a lot of tournaments too. What tournaments do you have going on right now?
I do the 1 versus 1. I'm going to make that a yearly thing, and we're going to do the Size Matters Crappie Tournament here April 23rd. They're just online stuff. It's a bunch of friends get together. I do offer a small purse at the end. It's driven off of super chats and stuff. So it depends on the people in the crowd. It's my way to maybe give a little incentive to the people and thank the people that are in the tournament. I also try to get as I don't want to call them sponsors, but they do sponsor the event by donating prizes to the chat box, I should say, to the chat room, which works good. It lets me thank the people who are giving their time up for both fishing and for watching. So it's been working out pretty good.
Right. All right, we got Chad Fields in the house. Welcome, Chad.
What's up, Chad?
If you guys are just joining us, we're going to get into our discussions here in just a few minutes, but we just have a few more questions for Mark as we get to know him. Let's see. Mark, one thing I want to know, how do you say your last name?
It is Pshibish. You have to trust me. Buddy calls me Fish Bish. That works. Mark is fine, though.
Yeah. I hate not saying a fella's last name, but I didn't want to butcher it for you.
That's okay. I understand. Trust me. It also lets, when I screw up somebody's name, it gives me that last name card or that mispronunciation card, so it gets me a pass.
Yeah. Danny Stone Outdoors, welcome. And Pontoon Jody said I shared out on the community tab. Thank you, Jody. We appreciate that. You said you live up in Illinois. You're pretty good ways up there. What lakes or rivers do you fish up there?
I fish the Fox River mainly. I fish a small local lake here, a community lake called Woods Creek, and then the chain of lakes. I fish Rock Cut State Park quite a bit. That's got some really nice sized crappie in it. They're a little harder to find at certain times of the year, but I'm figuring it out. I try to stay local. I also fish the Wisconsin River. I'm starting to fish there a little more now. Lake Mendota, I'll get out there in the spring. I've been out there in October one time before. Hopefully we can get out there with the price and fuel and stuff, though. I mean, $100 trips are going to be fewer and fewer. At least that's what fuel would cost me to get up there.
You need to get you a kayak.
Yeah, well, I'm not talking, my boat, Jeremy, I got a 16-foot Lund. It's their Fury, which is their panfish boat. I got it set up to catfish. I got a 40 horsepower Mercury 4-cycle, and 6 gallons of fuel will last me 2 trips here. So that's not the problem. It's that big old diesel I got. Yeah, at just under $5 a gallon for diesel, it adds up quick. So
okay. Do you do a lot of spider rigging, or are you a single pole fisherman?
We got a 2-pole limit here in Illinois. If you're trolling, which would include spider rigging, you can do 3. But like I say, I got a small boat. I haven't made the investment in like 14-foot, 12-foot rods, to be able to do that. And I'm a single pole guy when it comes to crappie, to be honest with you. I'm a dead stick off the side of my boat. But and when I have minnows, and I don't use minnows too often, but I'm a single pole guy, whether it's casting to them or casting a cork out. That's my method of choice.
Yeah, same here. I prefer having that jigging rod in my hand, and we'll get into this in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a bucket list lake? Is there somewhere you would like to go in the country you haven't been to? I
have a bunch. I want to fish with Lyle down with Lyle and Kim. What is it? Lake Truman. I want to fish that. Granada someday would be cool. I actually, one of my a crappie destination that I really want to fish is like Lake Okeechobee. I'd like to get down there and fish in Florida after them in like the dead of winter. I want to be on a crappie bite in the dead of winter and not have to be on the ice. I think that'd be kind of cool. And go down and fish with Josh in Southern Illinois over at Lake Egypt and Red Lake. Those are some of the places I really want to do. And fish with SK Crappie outside of Houston too. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be cool.
So yeah, I got a list.
I guess mine would be Lake Fork.
Lake what?
Mississippi, and that Grenada was my bucket list, but now it's Lake Fork. So I would like to go out there sometime.
Lake Fork's another good lake. The what's his name? Steve from Limits Tackle. I think he fishes Lake Fork quite a bit.
Yeah. Do you have mainly white crappie up there? Do you guys?
No, black. It's mostly black. The last limit I got last week was 14 blacks and 1 white. That's it. Every now and then you'll get a white mixed in, and if I catch a white, it's usually a solo fish. And I think people have been dropping them in the water for some reason. So I don't know, but every now and then, the blacks seem to be bigger. I don't notice a difference in the taste or their fight or anything. So I just noticed they're a little thinner if it's not spawn. So
yeah. The ones I catch around here, they tend to be a little bit smaller than the whites. I didn't know if it was that way up there or not.
No, actually, it just could be the numbers. Who knows? It's hard to tell.
Yeah. Have you ever pulled crankbaits for crappie? Or
I have. Actually, thanks to James Dockery and Lyle Stokes, I got a whole collection of them. I bought some little 2-inch crankbaits from Acme, and I bought one of. They talked me into getting one of every color, so I got about 15 of them ready to go. I got some stick baits and stuff. In the fall, I'll use small. What are they called? They're like little crankbaits, little tiny stick crankbaits.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll fish them like a drop shot, but I'll troll them slow with like a bell weight at the bottom or a drop shot at the bottom, and pull those like on a 2-foot leader behind, just to get to them in the basin. So I have used it much. I've had some success. I do a lot better with little 2-inch like paddle tails. I do a little better with them.
All right, we got Gene Tillman. Welcome, buddy.
What's up, Gene?
All right, y'all be getting your questions ready. If you have any questions for Mark or myself, we're fixing to get into these discussions. And me and Mark was talking a while ago. The crappie spawn is coming up, and I don't know about Mark, but I know I definitely get a lot of questions about the pre-spawn. How to locate these fish, best baits and stuff, and how to fish for them and stuff. So we're just going to hit the 3 phases of the spawn tonight: the pre-spawn, the spawn, and the post-spawn. So when the spawn gets here in a few weeks, you'll see everybody and their brother out on the lake. This is when the crappie are shallow; they're easy to catch. And then after these 2 or 3 weeks, a lot of your guys will kind of put their rods up for the year, but man, they're missing out on a lot of great fishing the rest of the year, ain't they, Mark?
They are. I've picked up trolling, long line trolling for them from Betty Jean Cross, and in the hotter months, I do pretty good. I also got a couple other methods that we can talk about later, but yeah, they are. People say that crappie tastes mushy in the middle of summer and stuff, which is what I'm guessing you're talking about. I don't know about all of that. I don't catch any monsters. I'm happy with a 10-inch crappie in the box, and I'll throw them right on ice in the dead of summer. And that breading to meat ratio, you don't notice the meat being that mushy. At least I don't.
No, I always just put mine on ice and then leave them on the ice overnight. And the next day, the meat, it's not mushy at all and tastes just like it does in cool weather.
I agree with you. That's a good point you bring up there. I talked to everybody from Betty to Jake over at Jigging with Jake, and they all recommended, and even SK, keep them on ice overnight. They're easier to flay, and they're good the next day. And when you're tired, you're not making any mistakes and leaving half a side of crappie off like I've been tortured by doing on a video. Yeah, I did that, folks.
Chad has our first question tonight. He said, what determines what color you're using for plastics?
I don't know about you, Jeremy, but I have like a bullet list. I always start with like a monkey milk, and then from that I go from the most natural looking color to like the craziest color, which is for me is called disco gold. I get from Brush Pile, and that's like a gold glitter with a chartreuse tail. And then I go from there. I'll move to the reds. I never do any good with electric chicken. I don't know if it's me or if it's our waterway up here, so I don't use that. I'll move into black and chartreuse colors, and then I'll usually end up somewhere with like a green pumpkin with a strawberry flake, or I have this color which they stopped making, which broke my heart, which is called Mardi Gras. Those last two that I said, they'll catch anything and everything, so you'll get a lot of nuisance fish, like bass and walleye and stuff you're not looking for. They'll bite on those colors, but I'll go through those or anything else that I got. I'll stick with the natural looking stuff, basically like the grays and red. When you're 5 feet or lower, it looks like gray in the water. So I'm mimicking, and I think that disco gold mimics shiners here, the golden shiners we have. So they could very well think that's what that is. So I don't know. I think size has a lot to do with it, more than anything. Silhouette, size, silhouette, and fall rate have more to do with it than color. Not that color doesn't, but it just has more to do with it.
Right. And here on my home lake, I use a lot of natural stuff as well. Just anything that looks I don't know if you can see that. That
Yep.
color got a little sparkle in it, just a white with a little bit of red or something. Especially in pre-spawn, want something natural, something shad looking. Seems to do best around here. The times I use my pinks and my chartreuses a lot is if the water starts getting a little bit dingy colored.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason in the wintertime, I can use a chartreuse in red fleck or something like that, or chartreuse in pink. They tend to see it better, I guess. I don't know, but it's a great wintertime bait for me.
Here in the winter on the ice, a hammered gold jig head and a red like a wedgie bait, or like a clam, because we're fishing on the ice, something small to mimic the larvae that are coming up off the bottom are like your best bet. White's probably a second, plastic on the end of that. So
yeah. What's y'all's water temperatures up there getting to right now?
It was 37 degrees today. I heard from my friend Violet. I talked to her today, and she was on the chain, which isn't the river, but it's right above the river. It's dammed off. And she was saying there was like 37, 38 degrees up there.
Wow, I didn't think it'd be that cold. So y'all got a ways off before y'all hit.
Well, we got shallow water here, so it was probably up in near 45 at one point, but we've had a week of 30 degrees, so it cools it off pretty quick. You're looking at granted we got a couple of 14-foot holes up there in the lake, but majority of that lake's on average between 4 and 6 feet.
Right. Right here, we was up to 58, but we had another cold front come in this week, so it's down around 55. Pre-spawn, I would consider that's the phase we're in right now. These fish are starting to feed up and stage up, getting ready for the spawn, just waiting on these water temperatures to creep up just a little bit. So I consider anything in the pre-spawn like the mid-50s to low 60s. Usually your blacks will come up first, and usually around 58 to 62 degrees is where they will come up shallow and start to lay their eggs, and the whites are a little bit behind them. They're mid 60s to close to 70 degrees, it seems like. Is that kind of the same thing you see?
Yeah, I'm looking for anywhere near 60 degrees. We don't have enough whites for me to know the difference between the two, and if they come in at different times. And before, I did a lot of boat fish. I was doing a lot of bank fishing for them. I would look at stuff like, we're still waiting on the daffodils to pop. When the daffodils pop and the morels start coming up, that's when it's time to fish for crappie up here, at least for me. That's something that my grandfather, taught me, and it's pretty dead on. You might get a little lucky. Like, here's an example. I got that limit last week, which was about 2.5, maybe even 3 weeks earlier than expected. It was kind of like, I'm bored, I'm going to go see if they're out there, and they were. But when I filleted them up, there wasn't a shad in their belly. Not one. It was still all larvae and stuff. That's important too. When you're cleaning them fish, look at what they're eating. That'll help you figure them out at that certain time. Usually what I notice on the pre-spawn or post ice out time, they got, we're looking 9-inch crappie with a 3-inch shad, 4-inch shad in their bellies. Pretty incredible to find. Kind of blew my mind when I started figuring that out. But yeah, I look for things like that. And I would say 50 degrees is when the spawn starts. I think 45, 40 degrees, if we get a couple of days like that, calm days where the water, well, not calm days, when post rain, after the water clears up, is pretty good. They're looking for oxygenated water here because they've been under the ice for so long. Well, we actually got 2 pre-spawn stages. We got ice out, right? And then we got staging. Then we got pre-spawn and spawn. That's the way I kind of divide them up here. But that could be different just because of the water temperatures and where they're coming from during the winter.
Okay. I see Paul Meadows jumped in here. Kevin. Jeremy's Tournament Cats. Danny Stone had a question. Is fishing for crappie with a cane pole bobber and a minnow something y'all make fun of? Asking for Chad.
Not one bit. When they're spawning on the beds, I don't like to take them off their beds because a bluegill will come in and decimate those beds.
Right.
The one little lake that I told you guys about that I fish here, it's no bigger than, I'm going to guess, 20 acres. It's a small little lake. And I'll take a bunch of limits out of there, but I don't take them at the wrong time, and I don't take the wrong fish. If you're peeling the males off the beds that are guarding the beds, the bluegills are going to come in there and decimate those beds. So if you catch them, I always throw them back. But you can definitely do that in waters where they're more plentiful. I got no problem with you taking them off, and a cane pole's a heck of a way of doing it.
And as far as having a bobber underneath the cane pole, I mean, it don't really get much funner than that, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's always cool. Even when I'm fishing for flatheads, I like using bobbers, man. I can't get away from them. I started when I was a kid, and I'll die using a float.
Yeah. Okay, we're talking pre-spawn, guys. If y'all have any questions for Mark, just make sure to put them up in the chat. I'll try to look through them best I can. Hopefully I won't miss them. If I do, just put it up
I'm
there.
watching too. And disclaimer here, folks, I love fishing for crappie. I'm by no means no pro. All I can do is share with my experience and what I've learned from others. So I like to give that disclaimer. I hate claiming that I know what I'm doing when I'm more of a fan of being a student of the whole game.
Right. As far as areas to fish during the pre-spawn, I know myself, I'll start out on the main lake points close to a creek or something. Or points, secondary points beside a spawning cove or something. These fish will come out of these creek channels and they'll stage on these points and stuff. And this time of year for here, the best way to catch these fish is spider rigging, which I hate spider rigging. I'd rather have the jigging rod in my hand. But if you're going to put numbers of fish in the boat, or if you're tournament fishing, I mean, it's just something you got to do to get a bunch of fish in the boat. It catches more fish this time of year. Pre-spawn and post-spawn is the only 2 times a year that you will see me trolling and spider rigging for these things. I absolutely hate it, but it does catch a lot of fish. Basically, just any kind of creek channel that's close to shallow water, because we're going to have some warming up periods coming up here. Then they'll come up and think about spawning. Then another cold front will come in. It'll push them right back down. So I'm fishing mainly these creek channels and points and stuff. Mark, how is it for you up there? Is it kind of the same thing, or do you look for something different?
We don't have so many creek channels. I don't fish the river for crappie, at least not often. And if I do, it's in the channels. We don't have so many. We don't have what you guys would call like creek channels and stuff. We'll have runoff. Maybe every now and then we got a little creek that comes in there, but all our water comes from snow runoff from way up north in northern Wisconsin.
Okay.
So I'm fishing just like you are, the points where those channels come in, at least on the river. On the lakes here, pretty much the same where the channels come in, the points on the channels, but they're pretty quick up here to move in to the channels and into the docks. For some reason, I like that. It's a little shallower. There's less wind. There's less, wind current. They're pretty comfortable in there, so they'll move in and out of there fairly quickly and multiple times of the year.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever fished a river system for crappie other than the Cumberland River. I have fished down there a little bit, but.
Right. We got, I fished the Fox, and the Fox has got a bunch of like channels where people have dug out over time. Well, way back when, where people live on, they park their boats on, they have docks in there. The crappie aren't as big in there. I've gotten a couple of big ones, but there's some pretty intricate channel systems here that for any reason, people just want waterfront access. So they were put in a long, long time ago. They'll duck out into there. And that could very well be why we have some. But most of the big crappie are on the lake or on the smaller bodies of water.
Gotcha. Want to be outdoors has a question here. It says, which is most used, hand ties or plastic?
I use plastics more than I use hand ties. It depends where I'm at. Here we go back to river fishing. I'm going to mention the Wisconsin River. Wisconsin River, I was doing a lot better in October with hand ties than I was with plastics. Why? I don't necessarily know, but I was doing a double hook river rig, which and that might have more to do with it than using a hand tie, but I think the action in them was where the advantage was. And pretty much what my version of a river rig is: heavier hand or heavier jig on the bottom, and then a dropper loop about a foot up with like where it trails maybe 12 inches behind it. So basically you got a jig at the bottom holding it up, and you got the one at the top trailing behind there. That was money for me up there. That worked really well. But I tried the same thing with plastics on one, and then I tried a hand ties on the other, and the colors were pretty much dead the same. I think the action had a lot to do with it too.
Good deal. A couple more questions on here. Danny Stone Outdoors says, I fish Otter Slough Conservation Area in southeast Missouri. There are large crappie, but it's overstocked with small ones. Any tips to target the larger fish?
You got to pick through them. I couldn't tell you. This is what I've found is that when I catch a larger crappie, I'm not catching anything but that larger one crappie. They seem to like to be solo. I don't know if you find that too. I'll mark a big fish on my radar, on my sonar, and it'll look like a crappie, but they're never in piles. It's always ones and twos. Like the bigger ones I was catching on that Wisconsin River, it almost looked like a washboard bottom, but you could tell they were fish because of the color difference. And they were just staying separate on themselves. They weren't stacking up or anything. That's what I've learned so far. Of course, you get a stack of them, and you know what they look like on a sonar. You got your little Christmas tree stacked all the way up.
Right.
It's stacked up, and those will all pretty much be the same. For the longest time, I always thought that year class fish, besides spawn and ice out, will stick together, but that's not necessarily always true. For the most part, it is. Birds of a feather flock together. They say it's kind of the same with crappie, but every now and then you'll get a big monster out of them.
Right. I tend to see the same thing. I have caught more fish on standing timber. My bigger fish. I mean, if I'm fishing a lay down or a brush pile or something, it's like you have to weed through a lot of the little ones, and the bigger ones are usually a little bit deeper than the smaller fish.
They're a little shyer too, a little wiser, and I think that the smaller ones are in more of a competition mode, so they're quick to go after a bait, where the bigger ones aren't. I think that might have something to do with it. Maybe that's what gives the appearance of them all being the same size when you're on a pile of them. I don't know until I get that live scope, which isn't going to be for a while. Live scope, a lot of people are learning that that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
The killer.
Want to be outdoors, a leader, and how long, or no leader?
I use a 4 and 6 pound mono. I don't use a leader for that. I just recently made a switch a couple of my lines over to braid. I'll be using a fluorocarbon leader on that. So
okay. And if he's talking about like the spider rigging, I didn't know if he meant like the leader line on the spider rigging rods, but I usually have about a 15-inch leader. I actually got one right here. I don't know if you can see it good. Here's my swivel right here. I got to look down to here. So that's about 15 inches, something like that.
I use an Albrecht knot because they'll actually go through some eyes pretty good. I'm not the greatest, but I'm getting better at tying them. Right. And I'll tie like a 5-6 foot leader, so I'm not having to keep tying leader on while I'm out in the boat. Got
you. Do you use braid at all when you?
I'm starting to make the change over the braid for crappies. For the only reason is because I'm going to try doing vertical jigging a little more this year. I'm not going to kid anybody. My trolling motor in the wind control isn't the greatest. Just because I haven't really concentrated on that. But hopefully I'm going to get my 10-foot B&M out there and see if I can't vertical jig some. Doing that and braid, from my understanding, you want that sensitivity, you want that connection right to the fish, so when they do bite you can set that hook.
Yeah, just getting it to break off is the only thing.
That's why you tied a leader. That's why they tied a leader. That's the only reason, because crappie, they're not line shy, but you tie that 8-pound 6-pound leader or whatever to the bottom of that, and that leader will break right off at the jig, rather than having the stress of having to or worrying about breaking your pole with 10 or 15-pound braid that a lot of guys use.
Right. And I usually use the little wire hooks too. They got so much bend in them.
Right.
That if you do pull, it's just going to straighten that hook. And a lot of times it won't, unless you're using like 6-pound line or something, normally it won't break that hook.
Yeah, I've been using them sickle hooks. They don't come in the thin wire ones. Maybe I should look at it. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm a fan of the sickle hooks.
During the summer and stuff, I know I get away. I can fish. I use 12-pound line, which is kind of overkill.
Mm-hmm.
But I hate retying all the time, having to bring several rods so I don't retie all the time. So I can get away with that 12-pound line. Our lake's about half dingy. It's not a real clear lake. So, and again, it'll just straighten that hook out, and I ain't spending all my time, you know.
It absolutely will. The reason why I like using the 4 and the 6 more than anything is castability. I'm
Right.
able, like right now, where I catch my crappie on that little lake, I'm literally having to cast it as far as I can with a weighted bobber. Weighted bobbers aren't great for crappie fishing, but sometimes you need it. I have to get out. I'm gonna guess maybe 70, 80 feet off the bank to get to the flats where they're hanging out this time of year. But I still do all right. I miss a lot of fish doing it that way, but
yeah. I actually think you get more bites with lighter line myself too.
That could be. I haven't really tried anything any heavier, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, especially when you're using those smaller jig heads, 16th, a 32nd ounce. You just the presentation, the fall is just a lot better.
You know, that's mainly what I've been used, or I've always used, were 16th and 32nd. I'm going to try and get into some of the smaller ones now. After hearing SK talk about when the bite's really delicate, or when they're really not that biting, that a smaller jig head, they'll inhale it deeper, because they don't actually bite, they inhale the bait.
Right.
And the lighter the jig, the deeper they're going to inhale it, and the chances of getting hooked up by them doing that are greater than not. So that's something that I wanted to test and try a little bit more. But until they get a little closer, until I get my boat in the water out, that's going to have to wait.
Yeah. Let's see here. Y'all want to do a giveaway? Does anybody out there want some jigs? I got some hand ties here. Oop. There's a 1/8 ounce with a blade on it. It's got a chartreuse head.
Yeah, we can talk about blades here in a minute.
And here's my go-to one right here. It's just kind of a shad pattern right there, red eyes. And then sometimes I find this pretty handy, catches a lot of fish. It's just a straight chartreuse. It's got a yellow head with orange eyes on it, a little bit of different colors in it. But it's one of my good jigs. Let's guess a number here. I don't have that fancy thing on mine where I can pick a winner. Let's do 1 through 100. Closest one without going over. Y'all go ahead and put your numbers in, and 1 through 100.
It'll take them a second. There's a little bit of lag on these lives, at least on my end.
Okay. I see Freddie's in here. How's it going, Freddie?
Freddie, the man, he's moved on to the next round of the 1v1. Good job, Freddie.
I'm gonna write this number down before I forget it.
All right. Want to be outdoors is picking 42. Gene says 48. Ronnie, hey, what's going on, Ronnie? He picked 64. 3B's in the house. What's up, 3B? 65. Danny Stone with a 28. Fields to Water with a number 8. Freddie with a 43, 29. Look at this. Here they come. Halana's in on it. Halana with a 73. Nina, how you doing, Nina? 27. See, you mentioned giveaway. They all show up in the chat.
Yeah, got their attention now.
Oh, yeah. I got to show you how to enable subscriber only mode if you don't know how. So when you do those giveaways, they got to be a subscriber to get it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's it. I got to do some moderators. How do you put moderators on here?
You would have to look at it in YouTube, or after the fact, you can go watch the replay and click on the 3 dots next to their name, and then it'll say add moderator.
Gotcha. All right, we'll give it about 15, 20 more seconds here. And I'll put my email address up here. So just send me an email with your name and address that you won the jigs, and I'll get these sent out tomorrow or Tuesday morning.
My goodness, Freddie. Freddie says he had to kick a dog out of his chicken pen. Killed like 10 of them. Wow.
Wow. All right. Well, I think we got all the numbers in. Here was my number.
56. I seen a 49, I believe, right? Is it closest without going over?
That's right.
All right. So I see Jody had a 49. Gene at a 48, but I think Jody might be the
Fly
one.
Guru has a 55.
Oh, there we go. Fly Guru. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I didn't even see him jump in here. Fly Guru. All right.
Yes, you did, Fly Guru. We were getting there. We apologize.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, congratulations. And just I put my email up there. Just send me your information. I'll get these out to you, and I hope you catch some fish with them. All right, getting back at it. We've already discussed the pre-spawn. Of course, when the water temperature is 58 or mid-50s, around 60 degrees, I consider that the pre-spawn. Let's move on to the spawn. The water temperatures that I'm looking at is around 62 to 65, kind of gets it fired up, you know. It can go up to 70 degrees here. What are you looking at there, Mark?
I'm looking around where the weather's been warm enough where if it rains, I'm not worried about standing in it. I'm not freezing my butt off, to be honest. But yeah, right around the 50, anywhere between like 56 to 60 plus degrees, I'm looking for.
Yeah. 58 degrees, that's when I start to look for the black crappie coming shallow. They tend to come up a couple of weeks or so before the whites do. So right here, we got 57, 58 degree water temperatures this week. So I was kind of looking for some crappie shallow, but I didn't find them this week. Probably take one more dose of warm weather to get them going. But
when they turn on and they're there, they're there. That's the truth.
Yeah.
You'll know when they're there. You just got to keep after them and keep on them. At least that's how I do it. Definitely those temperatures and I when I'm fishing for them, I kind of have an idea of when and where they should be. Maybe I need to pay more closer attention to water temps, but that probably seems about right.
Yeah. Do y'all have a lot of man-made structure in y'all's lakes, or do you put your own structure out? Or
every now and then you come across it. I don't put my own structure out. You're kind of not allowed, but I know a lot of locals do it, and thank goodness for side scan. I've been finding a lot of Christmas trees. Our local municipality in that little local lake, you'll see them drop the Christmas trees out on the ice every year. They'll put about half a dozen to a dozen out there, tied to cinder blocks. And I'll keep an eye out and try to figure them out. I've been marking them on my sonar when I'm out there during the summer, trying to get on them on the ice through the winter, but for some reason I can never find them. I think they move. They probably do. Yeah.
Do you use a longer rod during the spawn to keep from spooking them? Or
I cast to them mostly, so it don't matter. Right? Yeah, I use a 7.5 and an 8-footer. I got a 10-footer that I have that works really well for long line trolling. You'd be surprised. But other than that, mine are all the standard lengths. I keep away from the real shorter rods. I know a lot of people like the shorter ones. I did buy a dock shooter that I'm going to try this year, but I think that's a 6-foot rod. I'd have to take a look.
That's something I haven't tried yet. That looks pretty cool. Me too. I'd say you have to get the hang of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a bucket on its side out in the front yard, and the neighbors are gonna look at me funny while I'm out trying to learn it. I think that's the way to do it.
All right.
Kyle gave me that idea of all people. He was out there messing around.
Yeah. What kind of baits do you prefer during the spawn? Are you live baiting, or do you prefer?
No, I use just plastics. All right, I'm a creature of convenience. Bait shops like just as far from here to the lake, but in the opposite direction. So I got to double my distance to go get bait. And right here, paying $20 for 3-4 dozen minnows. I got a $20 launch fee most of the time. It's whatever's worth. I can use 2 or 3 baits in a day without losing them as long as the color's hitting, and it's just better. I don't fish. I don't think you do any worse with plastics than you do with live baits. If anything, you're getting some of the bigger fish. So
right. The only advantage I could think of to the live bait is like after the females leave the nest and the males are still there guarding the nest. A lot of times the males can be a little bit tricky to bite. And if you have that little minnow down there just dancing, putting off a little, seems like you get bit a little bit more.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen. I don't like to fish for crappie without any little bit of chop. on the top of the water.
Yeah.
If there's a little bit of chop, I always do a lot better. If it's a calm day, I a lot of times I won't even bother, to be honest with you.
Right.
I can get them to bite, but it's a struggle. It absolutely is. Maybe those are the days I should try minnows for the most part. But if I'm using minnows, it's usually because I have one of my fishing buddies. That's usually the price of admission. I'll tell them to pick some minnows up on the way to the boat ramp. So
I mix it up. I use a lot of both. Probably in the summertime, I'm mainly just jigs, but during the spawn, I'll use a jig with a minnow tipped on it, just to try to present a bigger profile and stuff for them females. And
for me, another thing is, casting a minnow 50 feet, chances are you're going to cast it right off the hook too. At least how I hook them through the nose, I do that an awful lot. Or you get a couple of casts out of them at the most, and you're having to rebait. And especially like in the cold weather and stuff, you want to keep your hands from getting wet too. So that's another advantage to plastics, as far as I'm concerned. If I'm ice fishing, I have no problem using a jigging spoon, but we take the heads right off the minnows and we'll put them on there. For some reason, that's to take it through the ice. I've tried whole minnows on jigging spoons and on hooks, but something about a minnow head, I don't know if it's the scent or if it's the entrails hanging off of there that do it, but there's a big difference in any species I've found.
A few more people in here. Miss Nina, Fly Guru Chronicles. Seemed like there was another Halana's.
Yeah, Halana, that's Freddie's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Fat Boy Eric fished in the house. Gene Tillman, we said hello. Danny Stone, we said hello. I fishing with Squirrel. He's getting in on the Size Matters Crappie tournament. I see Chris from Hooks and Hammocks. What's going on, Chris? You guys just missed a giveaway.
During these spawns when they're going on, seems like every year it never fails. We'll have a cold front come in.
Yeah.
These fish, they pull out that shallow structure. Where do they go in your opinion?
They go right back to where the females are staged up. At least what I've found and everything I've read and that has proved to be true is the males are going to stay on the nest and the females are going to stage up outside the nest, right outside where there's even the slightest little bit of drop off. I think if the weather gets real cold and it interrupts them in any way whatsoever, they'll actually go out to that staging area and they'll reset. The females will grow more eggs. They don't necessarily get rid of all of their eggs all at one time. There's people out there that'll argue they'll actually, not necessarily spawn multiple times, but spawn in multiple areas at different times, and they'll grow more eggs. I've had times where I thought they were going to get ready to spawn. I've caught a bunch of them with eggs still in them, and they didn't spawn for 2 weeks after that, but that was because of a cold front. And then the ones I caught after that even had more roe in them. So, and when I'm fishing the spawn too, I want to just mention this. I don't fish off the nests. I try to leave the nests alone, especially on that one little crappie lake that's kind of like my hidden gem. I kind of want to take care of it. There isn't too many people that fish that lake, at least not in a boat. And I'd rather leave the males on the nest. And I've actually seen a difference. I mean, like I said, I pulled that, just over 12-inch crappie out, which, 3 years ago, I was never seeing them that size. And I'm catching more and more like that in the last year or so. So yeah. I try to leave the males on the nest to protect those eggs from the bluegills, because the bluegills will come in and decimate those nests. At least here they will. And the females go out and they stay in that staging area waiting on the males to come back out for some reason, or to go back in if they feel the need to.
Well, that's definitely a good practice and probably something I should consider. But I have a hard time doing that if he's going for a boat ride.
I mean, if I'm on a big water, if I'm out on Rend where, crappie are so prolific breeders, it's usually not an issue. But this is just something that I do on that small body of water, which is literally 5 minutes from my house. So I can't complain. Well, actually, it's 8 minutes. I timed it once and one stoplight. That's
something else I think that's overlooked, Mark, is the water depth that people fish during the spawn. I mean, everybody knows they're shallow, but I can catch these spawning fish. They may be in a foot of water. They may be in 8 foot of water. I mean, these fish ain't gonna spawn at the same water depth.
Nope. I think it's has more to do with what the what the makeup of the bottom is, and if there's current, if there isn't a lot of current, if it's calm water, if they can get in behind a rock or something. A lot of times I've seen them, seen them up there or behind their garden nests and stuff. I got this. I plan on using this year. I'm going to mount it on my boat. That's my ice fishing camera, my Markham. I'm going to see if I can't figure out, at least in a couple of the real clear lakes here, see if I can't get some video of them on the nest. That would be pretty cool. But you're absolutely right. I'm finding the males on nests anywhere between like 1 foot to like, I'm going to say 3 feet, but you got to remember this isn't a huge part of this lake where it's a 5 foot max there. So it's more of a percentage game when it comes to that, I think.
Yeah. Crappie,
my deep water crappie game is terrible. I won't even lie about that. If I'm anything after like 15 feet, I'm always struggling. I really am.
Do you catch a lot in the summertime, or?
When I long line troll, I'll do all right. And a lot to me is if I get 10 to 10. A limit at a lot of these places is 15. If I can get anywhere like 10 or even a full limit, I'm a happy guy. But the problem with trolling, you can be productive and you can find where they're at, which is good. I use it more for locating. But you're let's say you troll a mile or a half a mile, you got to turn that whole rig around, recast out, and do it again. It's pretty time consuming. It's a lot easier to get zeroed in on them and cast to them or drop right down into them. You're way more productive that way.
Right.
Now in the summer, if we talk about that, you showed us that little spinner. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is we have a lot of milfoil up here in the water. Right there. And the best thing about those is not only is the added action of it, at least I'm finding, is it keeps that hook upright. You're able to get through that milfoil a little easier because that's exactly where I'm finding them in the summer, is in the milfoil. Big time. And I'm casting to and I'm retrieving with those and paddle baits and such.
I catch twice the number of fish in the summer as I do any other time of year. And there's not many people crappie fishing during the summer, it seems like. But if you think about it, the temperature is more stable, the weather conditions are more stable, and you know exactly where these fish are going to be, the same depth they're going to be there all summer. So summertime's is so predictable to me, and I just think it's the easiest time of year to catch them myself.
I think ice out is the easiest time for me. I do like summer, definitely like summer crappie, but in the summer, I'm chasing a lot of catfish usually. So I haven't given it that much time. But when I am out there on those couple of lakes, I'm casting to the weeds and I'm using stuff like that with the underspin. Or from Mr. Twister, they sell like the little they almost look like a bass spinner. The little wire where you can put your own jig on there, and that'll help keep that hook upright and get you through those weeds, and I'll do pretty good. The hardest part about crappie fishing there's two parts, is when they don't want to bite, making them bite. And the hardest is finding them. Once you find them and you learn where they're at certain times of the year, you can get closer to them. You're golden, at least as far as I'm concerned.
And a lot of times when these fronts come in, I found out that, they may go just a little bit deeper, but if you just leave your bait there just a little bit longer, you'll tend to get more bites too. Because sometimes they'll just swim up to it and look at it. If the fronts come through or something, and you may have to entice them a little bit. Let that minnow swim around a little bit. Give it more time before you're working it up.
That's why I like that little bit of chop, especially if you got something with a real delicate tail. That helps as far as plastics go.
All right, we talked about the pre-spawn and the spawn. Now we'll get into the post-spawn. I don't think there's a whole lot to say about that because it's kind of the same thing as the pre-spawn. These fish are pretty much going to go back to where they were pre-spawn. They're just going to move out on these channel edges, a little bit deeper water, and it's actually another good time to catch them because they've been on the nest for a couple weeks or whatever, and I mean they're ready to feed up. They're thin and ready to eat. So I will spider rig a little bit at that time, and then after the post spawn, I put them spider rigging rods in the garage and don't touch them the rest of the year.
People think that's another thing I want to bring up real quick. Going back to the spawn, is that they're going to be on the bank all the way along the bank. They are along the bank, but they're not as close as you think. At least in my look, I've been most productive by fish them like you'd be fishing bass. Fish that whole shoreline. If you can walk it, walk it. If you're in a boat, spend a couple of minutes in like a 20-foot span of it, and you'll get 1 or 2 fish out of it if you are fishing the males on there. That's the best way to do. But once you get zeroed in onto where they're at near the bank, you can go out, a couple of feet deeper, even deeper, look for a ledge, and you'll get on those females that are out there. So the ones that their eggs are already gone.
All right. Freddie had a question for you. Said slip bobber or not?
I hate slip bobbers, but I'll use them. I'm not a big fan of slip bobbers. I like being able to detect the upbite on a fish. Well, that's why my, 13 feet and deeper game is terrible, because I don't use a slip bobber. I'll cast to them and do a countdown, try to figure out how fast my jig is sinking. So I'll do like Richard Jean does, cast out past him, do a countdown, and try to keep that bait at that depth, which is hard to do, but I manage all right.
Yeah, I've rarely used a slip bobber. I used to all the time, but the only time you'll see me using one now is like during the spawn when they're really shallow. I like watching that bobber. That's just fun to me. Kind of like bluegill fishing. But any other time of year, if I'm vertical, jigging or whatever, I want to feel it. I like to feel the thump right there.
That thump, definitely. Yeah. I feel that thump with when I'm casting to them without a bobber. You can definitely feel it. It'll scare you after half a dozen casts without getting anything. You're not paying attention. Oh man, they ain't here, and you'll feel that thump, and it'll perk you right up.
Yeah. Have you used the live scope yet?
My buddy has live scope. He's got the ice fishing bundle, and he's a welder. So he welded up a clamp system that we take on my boat. I've had it out twice, and all it did is make me second guess everything I've ever thought, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It really did. I never in my life, you see all these videos, you see the ice fishing videos, you see the fish at the tank at Bass Pro Shops, right? And you think they're moving like that. They're not. They move a heck of a lot faster, especially like bait balls of shiners and stuff, man. They are cruising. Walleye, they are cruising. Crappie will stay there for the most part, but when they move, they're on the move. They're migrating and stuff. So it really is kind of humbling, to be honest with you. I don't have live scope yet, but the couple of times I did, I thought it was pretty darn cool, I must say.
It is pretty cool. I don't know if it's something I'll ever get or not. I've been out with some friends that had it, and more times than not, it would get me in trouble because I would see the fish swim up to my bait, and you see him get right up to it, and I would preset the hook. I mean, prematurely there.
You still got to wait for that thump, I guess, and we hit that live scope out there twice, and we got skunked both times. What's that tell you?
Yeah. I think it's great for the guys that are tournament fishing for the big money and stuff. It's kind of a necessity for them because they can kind of cruise around and spot the larger fish. You can see the size of the fish better than you can on the 2D sonar. But unless you're, fishing for big money or something like that, I just don't really see the point.
I just updated, thank goodness to a subscriber. They sent me an updated transducer from my Garmin. I just got a 72 SV, right? But this one supposedly is going to give me a little clearer image. And if I can get a clear image with that UHD 54, I think it is, it'll put off my live scope purchase until the cost of entry is a heck of a lot cheaper. If I can, and what I would use it for, the side image, if I can get it to be a little clearer, is finding them under the docks. I mean, you can spend all day here in this area. If you got 500 docks to fish, you can't get through them all in a day. If you're taking 3 or 4 minutes at each one, trying to see if fish are there to bite. And me, I'm always second guessing myself. Am I using the right color? Am I using the right size? Well, let's try this. Let's try that. And I think whether it's live scope or a better picture with side image would save me a bunch of time. If I know the fish is there, I can go after them and adjust accordingly. So,
yeah, I have a buddy that fishes the American Crappie Trail, and the way it helps him is when he's using the live scope, he just looking for the size of fish. When he pulls up to a structure and scan it, and that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it to where he's not wasting time fishing for something that's not there or fish that's not going to help him. So I can see it for them guys. It's pretty cool. I enjoyed using it that day.
It's something about having to pay. All right, it's 60, or now the new one's what, $1,800, I think, for the new version of Live Scope. You're talking $1,800, and that's without a head unit to read it. I need an upgraded head unit. You're looking at least $2,000 for something like that. So you're looking at the price of entry right around $4,000 with mounts, and that's not including an extra battery because they're power hungry things. And that's a lot to catch little crappie, to be honest with you. Until there's more of an application for it, I'm going to definitely wait till the price to entry is a heck of a lot cheaper.
Right. Muskrat said I may want to add a couple mods. I don't know if we had somebody in here or not, but Mark was just showing me how to do that a while ago, so I'm going to take care of that here in just a little while. I appreciate the heads up. There's some more folks I haven't seen in here. Ian Tipton, Squirrel, Fishing with a Squirrel, Muskrat, Creole Catfishing, LG Bass. Several more joining in here.
Muskrat and Twisted Fishing TV. There's Frank. He's Eric B in the house. Prayer Warrior Eric, what's going on, bud?
That's awesome. And I've seen a question in here from Want to Be Outdoors. Where'd it go?
Oh, it's a color question, wasn't it?
Something about a depth. What depth was I fishing or something? If he's talking about the spider rigging, you just have to experiment. It depends on day to day, but usually as a general rule, 10 foot's the magic number. But sometimes I'll run a double minnow rig or something. I'll have one at 8 and 10 or 10 and 12, and I'll see what depth is producing the best. And that's just what works for me.
Fly Guru had a question. He says, when you're going out for the first time on a water body looking for crappie, where do you start? The bait shop. I asked the guys at the bait shop, where are they catching them? I ask for depths. I don't ask for locations. I go, are they catching them on the docks? Are they catching them at such and such a depth? And I'll go from there, and then I'll open up in avionics and match those conditions and those depths up with what they told me. That's usually the way of going about it. Other than that, it's scanning with your electronics.
Yeah. Water temp's probably the big one for me. That kind of tells you what you need to know, where these crappies should be. Muskrat had something on here. Does anyone else fish flood control lakes that are super low now and will begin to fill on April the 1st? You got anything on that, Mark?
No, I don't. The closest I have is, that dammed off river and that dammed off creek, which is, I wouldn't consider that a reservoir. That's just pretty much a body of water that was created for recreational use.
Yeah. The lake I live on, it is a flood control lake, and for the last 3 or 4 years, it's been super high. It's actually, I think it's going to get back down to summer pool this week in the next day or so. It's really close. But the last 2 years, we've had a lot of rain. And during mid-April, when I consider the crappie spawn to be peaked, we've been 20, 25 foot above summer pool. So I'm not exactly sure how our spawn went. I know we were catching crappie about 24, 25 foot deep during what should have been the spawn last year. So I'm not sure if some come up after that or if they had a false spawn. That was kind of intriguing to me what was going to happen with that. But the numbers of fish are doing really good. We catch a lot of short fish here. Last year, they just bumped our size limit up from 9 inches to 10 inches. So this year, we're catching a ton of 9 1/4 to 9 3/4 inch fish.
Is that the way it always works?
Yeah.
Jeremy actually had a question. He says, is there a certain situation or certain situations y'all have noticed where a jig will outperform a minnow? I wouldn't say certain situations. I can do more with the jig than you can do with the minnow, because you can't really change a minnow size unless you got multiple size minnows. But the size of a minnow, you can't change the color. You can't change the profile of it. So
the advantage for a jig, in my opinion, would be just the color. Like maybe the pink or the chartreuse would be more of an attention getter. Sometimes that entices bites to where a live bait minnow or whatever won't. I've seen it happen that way. I've always said it's hard to beat a minnow, but
I agree. Natural bait's the way to go. I mean, look at catfishing. It's the same way.
But there has been times I fished with jigs more in the past year than I have my whole life, and I'm still learning how to fish them and how to change what colors they're looking for during certain situations. But there is times where the jig will outfish the minnow.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Gross, what's up, buddy?
I see Real Gals Fish the Mississippi, and I see Fishing Freedom, husband and wife right there. What's going on, guys?
We've covered a lot of information tonight, Mark. I'll give everybody a chance. If y'all got any more questions, to go ahead and put them on there before we wrap it up here.
Here's a question. What's your favorite way to eat crappie, Jeremy? There's my question to you.
It's hard to beat a fried piece of crappie, in my opinion.
You ain't wrong there.
But me and my wife, the last couple of years, we've tried some. We've baked them.
Mm-hmm.
Put a fillet in the oven, just a little bit of butter and some Parmesan garlic seasoning on it, and just put it in the oven. That's really tasty.
Nothing. Garlic has never hurt anything I've ever put it on. I ain't gonna lie. Even I got some of this smelly jelly from SK I won in his show. It's garlic scented. It is so potent, Jeremy, that my wife said, have you been out eating Italian when I go to bed? Because I'd have like a tiny little bit like under my fingernail or something. Wash out. Stinks up the whole room. But yeah, that works pretty good. Yeah, definitely. Something I wanted to try this year is crappie on the half shell. I've seen a couple guys on YouTube do that, where they actually leave the skin side. You know, they take the scales off, they leave the skin side on, and they grill it skin side down. And they kind of load it up with garlic and butter on the top. That looks pretty good too.
Oh, it sounds good. Real Gals Fish, how's it going? Fishing in Freedom. Creole says whole bait stuffed with onions and peppers.
Ooh, that sounds good. And Matt says, Mark, do you remember that color question for different clarities? Yeah, I fish a lot of clear water, Matt. I'm a firm believer you got to hit them in the head in real muddy water. The scents kind of helped, which is why I'm starting to use that smelly jelly I always use, whether it's one of the flea fly little ball baits that have scent on the hook, or the crappie nibbles. I think scent is a plus. It's never hurt a bite. I think it gets them to hold on a little longer rather than exhaling it, because they don't bite, they actually inhale the bait. I think it definitely makes a difference there. I don't see why that scent trail wouldn't bring them to you in dirty water. Of course, there's different schools of thought. People say use brighter baits in muddy water. People say use not so, even clear ones in muddy water, so they're just seeing a silhouette. They see a silhouette. The thought is, hey, what the heck is that? I don't want to miss out, just in case it's something good. And they'll go after it that way. Not that they think that way, but it gets them all excited. I've caught crappie in really bright baits and really clear water, and really dark baits and really dark water, and vice versa. I couldn't tell you. I'm still trying to figure it out myself.
Something about the pink in muddy water. Pink is just, if the water's dingy or muddy, something about that pink will get you bit.
That's what everybody tells me, man. I don't have any luck with it. I think it's more me than the actual color. Because I'll put pink on there. I'm like, let's try it. There's that or electric chicken, and go, this is never going to work. And I definitely think that's where I kind of end the game right there.
Yeah, Danny Stone was asking, I think he missed our answer a while ago. He was asking about the jigs versus the minnows. We pretty much said the colors like a big thing, an advantage to over the live bait. That was a big one. And the presentation's a little bit different. You can sit there and do several different things with that jig, where that minnow, sometimes it'll sit still, sometimes it may wiggle a little bit, but
you'd be surprised how much of a difference. Here, let me pull out a couple. Now, here's one. Here it looks like almost like a little tadpole, right? You see how it's kind of bulbous at the end, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where here's like another one, totally different source that I've got this from. This is kind of that same, but it's elongated, and I've gotten bites on one of these rather than the other one, and vice versa, even though this one's got a bent tail. Don't use bent tails. They make a difference too. You can keep your baits tail straight if possible. A lot of time, if they're kind of crooked, you can leave them lay out in the sun for a minute on your boat, anywhere in your boat, and you can get them straightened out.
Yeah.
But those stuff like that actually does make a difference. At least I've found.
Creole says black and blue usually is the go-to color in tea-colored water. I don't think I've ever used a black and blue jig.
I'm guessing that the water down by Creole is almost always murky.
Yeah. I have used black and chartreuse. That's a good one, too, in muddy water.
I've used black and blue, and I've had pretty good luck with black and blue.
If you had to use only one color, what would it be? I'll
Monkey
let you
milk.
answer that one.
Monkey milk. You don't even have to finish that sentence. Monkey milk.
Monkey milk it's one of the best colors that I have. It produces really good. See, somebody said Tennessee shad too. I'm a big believer in a natural bait color like these colors right here. Something to mimic the bait fish I've had more luck on. So I try to stay with the natural colors unless just the water clarity or something like that's just really off or something. Muskrat says black and blue are one of his favorites. I'm going to have to try that, I guess. People's catching on it. Black and chartreuse white. Chartreuse are my go-to baits. Monkey milk and blue ice. That is a good one, too. Want to be outdoors.
Get some glow jigs from Eric Massey. I don't have them in here. But don't think that glowing jigs are a gimmick. They're not. They work. The ice fishing guys will tell you, and they work just as good in the summer as they do in the winter. In the winter, everything's dark under the ice, so those glow jigs really stand out. And you can kind of call in a crappie like you can a walleye, just not from as far. So they're curious animals, just like anything else. If you can get their attention, you can get them to at least come check it out.
Yeah. Twisted said gold and watermelon. I don't think I fished gold. What color would you use that in?
Well, I use that disco gold.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had my bag in here. It's literally like gold glitter. It's as gaudy and as loud as you can think of, with like an orange or a chartreuse tail. I got two different varieties, and I would definitely use that. And I've caught stuff on that in clear water. It's a good search bait for some reason. And I really think that, when it's a few feet underwater, that it turns into a solid gold, that it mimics a golden shiner, which is a pretty big food source for all the fish here in my area.
You think it's like the pink is, and it's just kind of a attention getter?
It could be. It could very well be. It might be, but I think more that it's closer to a golden shiner underwater. It looks that way, because water reflects light funny and filters other colors out and stuff. So not fish, we don't really know.
Yeah, Twisted said clear water, so maybe it does look like one of those shiners.
Yep. I thought for sure. I'm like, you know what? I was having a really hard time getting some crappie last year, and I'm like, I'm gonna try it. I just got some sent to me from Brush Pile, and Jake over at Jig with Jake had him send me a box of their clear water and their dark water colors. They used to have kits that they would buy, and he sent them to me. And I'm like, well, let's try this really loud one. It can't hurt. And I did. And on a retrieve, I started getting them, and I got them. Here's another thing. Once you can get that pile of crappie to bite, you can get them all to bite. It's getting that first couple ones to bite. I'm learning too.
Or get that stool trigger.
Yeah, you get them excited. You get them worked up. It's like giving one kid in preschool that sucker. The whole class wants it.
Have you ever used red minnows, like the rosy reds?
I've had them thrown into my minnow bucket in the past on accident by the guy at the bait shop, and I've caught fish on them. Did I do any better than the regular fatheads that I use? I don't know. I haven't had enough to test it. I'm too busy trying to get fish in the box. Here's me. When I'm crappie fishing, I get excited. If I get on a bite, man, if I'm on a bite, I'm just trying to get fish in the box, to be honest with you. The times that I'm really trying things is when I'm not catching fish. And those times when I can turn that bite around, that's when I learn something. But I haven't had those rosy reds. I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, I use red plastics. They work.
Yeah, everybody on Kentucky Lake, that's kind of the bait there. They say they catch more on those.
Well, you know how fishermen are. They get into those fads, and it's the deal. It's the bait of the century. Hey, you got to use chicken for catfish and such and such. You know how that goes.
Yeah, Twisted said I use more natural colors in clear water and really dark or bright and dingy to dirty water.
And see, that makes total sense to me.
Parker Pursuit said blue and white is good for me in clear water. Blue and white and purple and white. I notice a lot of them jigs being used because I see them out there in the brush piles all the time. That's something I haven't.
Pure white's a great color. Don't discard twister tails. They love twister tails. If you can get one with enough action at the slowest retrieve you could possibly do, you're going to do well with a twister tail as well.
All right. Well, Mark, we're about 12 minutes over here, man. This thing flew by, didn't it?
Sure did. I have fun talking crappie. I always do.
I've had a great time, man. I appreciate you coming on, and
man,
we shared a lot of great information tonight. I think. I hope somebody's got something out of it tonight, and been a fun night for sure. So,
Frank says purple's a good color too. See, now I got to buy some purple plastics. Or you know what? Actually, I think I got some purple stuff for tying. I might tie a few of those.
I got some purple and white and blue and white that I need to try. I haven't tried those yet.
I always, real quick before we go, I could keep talking for a while, Jeremy. Pardon me, but I'll bring 3 poles with me, 2 with jig heads, 1 at a 16th and 1 at a 32nd, just so I can get different fall rates. And then I bring that 3rd one. That's always my, hey, I want to try this. If I get on a hot bite, that's when I pull that 3rd one out to see if it works.
Right.
I've been doing a lot of that in the last couple of years, and it's been kind of fun.
I do a lot of my experimenting in the summertime because I can find a lot of fish on them laydowns and stuff, and I know the fish are going to be there, so I can start with something new and just kind of work my way to
absolutely
see what they're going to hit. So it's a good time to kind of try different things.
That would be my biggest reason for wanting to fish with live scope, is so I know the fish are there. I can learn what works and what doesn't, because if you're fishing where the fish ain't there, you could be thinking something doesn't work when there's no fish to prove it's working. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you can actually see how they're reacting to that bait, because a lot of times they'll swim up to it and look at it, or they may just come up and crush it, but you see how they react to it. I
had a talk with Kim Burnett one night, and he was talking about, because I don't fish too much standing timber. There's a lake out here, Shabana, that has a lot of standing timber. And he explained to me that because of live scope, he knows that them crappie will sit there with their nose right up to the timber and just sit there right there. He says, you got to fish all the way around every piece of that timber, else you might not get on them. And you see that stuff like that, you don't learn without tools like live scope, which is cool.
Yeah. Well, you got anything else, Mark?
No, that's it, man. Let me see. Obviously, we got Catfish Weekly and Catfish and Crappie tomorrow. I'll be posting the thumbnail probably in the morning. We're gonna talk to the last 4 guys that were in the 1 versus 1 Panfish Nation on Thursday nights. So that's about it. And then Saturday is going to be the final. It's going to be Freddie versus Creole in the 1 versus 1 March Madness. I'm looking forward to getting that done. It's been a really good time hosting it and watching those guys fish. We've had some adverse conditions, but I think for the most part, it was definitely a success.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Gonna be fun to watch, man. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you, Mark. Definitely shared a lot of knowledge with us tonight. I've enjoyed talking to you, picking your brain a little bit, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
My pleasure. Anytime you need me, man, just give me a call.
We'll do it. And guys, thank you for joining us. And for some reason you're not subscribed to Mark, check out his channel, Catfish and Crappie. And he's also the co-host of Panfish Nation. So make sure you check him out. 2 great channels there to be watching. Well, Mark, we're going to end it right there. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
All right, stay on just a minute and we'll.
You got it, bud.
All right, buddy. Thank y'all.
Bye, everybody.